You ask your RAG system about the impacts of climate change on the environment. It hands back nothing useful. And the answer was in there the whole time. A long, careful write-up on coral bleaching in the Great Barrier Reef. Your search never found it, because that page says bleaching and thermal stress and reef mortality. Words your user was never going to type. Now here is what I do when this happens, and I am genuinely not proud of it. Swap the embedding model. Rechunk the whole corpus. Pull back 20 results instead of 5. Bolt on a re-ranker, because somebody on the internet said re-ranking fixes this. And every one of those has the same alibi. You can change any of them you like, and the search still goes out with the exact sentence your user typed. The question is the one part of that pipeline nobody thinks they're allowed to change. So change it. Before the question ever reaches your vector store, you hand it to a language model and let it rewrite the question into something that searches better, which, if you think about it for a second, should bother you. That model has never seen your documents. So how does it know to go looking for coral bleaching? Hold on to that question. The answer is the reason any of this works at all. First, watch what the rewriting actually does. Think about sending somebody into a storage room to fetch something for you. A big room, wall to wall with unlabeled boxes. You say, "Go and get me something for the garden." They come back with whatever happened to be sitting nearest the door, and they did exactly what you asked. That's the problem. Say instead, "The green hose on the second shelf by the window," and that's what comes back. Nothing about the room changed. Nothing about them changed. Only the asking. And now let me break my own analogy, because it falls apart in exactly the place that matters most. The person you sent can turn around and ask what you meant. Your search step has no mouth. It takes your words, grabs the nearest thing, and comes back, which means all the thinking about how to ask has to happen before the search runs. So, the climate question. You hand it to a model and say, "Make this specific, unpack what the person is really asking for, and write it the way the documents would write it." And back comes the specific effects of climate change on various ecosystems, including changes in temperature, precipitation patterns, sea levels, and biodiversity. Watch what happened to a single word. Environment came apart into 5: ecosystems, temperature, precipitation, sea levels, biodiversity. That's 5 hooks into your documents instead of 1, and every one of those 5 actually appears in some paragraph you already stored. Now the opposite failure, and this is the one that catches people, because the obvious fix makes it worse. How does insulin resistance affect type 2 diabetes? That's a good, sharp question. Try to sharpen it further and you get nothing, because detail was never what it was missing. What it does is quietly assume you already know what diabetes is, and what it does to a body. It's standing on ground nobody ever asked for. So you go the other way entirely. You have the model step back and ask the broader question sitting underneath it. What is diabetes, and what does it do? That pulls back the foundational pages, the ones that explain how the thing works at all. And you don't throw the original away, you run both searches. You just search for less than the person asked for, on purpose. And then there's a third kind, which is neither. Not vague, not narrow. It's 4 questions in a trench coat pretending to be one. The climate question again. Read it properly, and there are 4 completely different searches hiding inside that one sentence. How climate change affects biodiversity and ecosystems. What it does to oceans and marine life. How it changes weather patterns. And what happens to forests and deserts? A model writes those 4 out separately, each one narrow enough to land on real pages, and each one goes off and runs its own search. 4 piles come back. You merge the piles, drop the duplicates where the searches overlapped, and the whole set goes to the model along with the original question. 2 to 4 sub-questions is the range worth staying inside. Fewer, and you miss a whole side of the question. More, and you're paying for searches that return the same chunks. 3 broken questions. 3 different repairs. And now they get their names. Sharpen, widen, split, or, if you want the names on the papers, query rewriting, step back prompting, and subquery decomposition. And now that question I asked you to hold on to. How does a model that has never opened one of your documents, not a single one, guess the words inside them? Because it isn't guessing your documents, it's guessing your subject. Anybody writing seriously about reef damage reaches for bleaching and thermal stress, whether they work at your company or not. Your content is unpredictable. Your vocabulary isn't. The model never needs to know what your store says, only how your field says it. And through all of this, one thing never moves. Only the search changes. Whatever shape the query took on the way in, the answer at the end is written against the question your user actually typed, and nothing behind it changes either. Your chunks, your embeddings, your store, your answer prompt, all of it stays exactly where it is, which is why this is cheap to try. Now the bill, and it's worth being blunt about. Every question your system takes now waits on a language model call before the search has even started, and splitting multiplies it. 4 sub-questions means 4 separate trips to your store for one person asking one thing. Which brings me to the part videos like this one usually leave out. If your retrieval already returns the right pages, don't do any of this. You would be adding a model call and a delay and a whole new thing to debug to buy yourself nothing. This is a fix for a problem. Make sure you actually have the problem. And when you do have it, you can read which repair you need straight off the question. Aimed the right way but too vague, you sharpen it. Specific but standing on background nobody asked for, you widen it. 4 questions in a trench coat, you split it. And real systems mix them freely. You can split a question first, then sharpen each of the pieces before any of them go out to search. So back to that question you asked at the very start, and the reef page your search walked straight past on its way to nothing. Your documents were fine, your embeddings were fine, your chunker was fine. The coral bleaching page was sitting in your store the entire time, and that re-ranker you were about to install would never have helped, because it never got to see it. You just asked in the wrong language. One thing worth doing today, go and take the last 10 questions real people asked your system, and read them as search queries instead of as questions. You'll spot the hopelessly vague ones straight away, and I promise you'll find at least one that was, all along, 3 questions in a trench coat. The working notebook for this one is in the RAG Techniques repository, linked below, along with the chapter it came from. And I make these to take the new, complicated corners of AI and explain them until they actually click. So if that's what you're after, subscribe.